let's start with the American group. And what we'll do is we will each bring 3 guys to the table. Now, we might be able to copy a little bit because sometimes guys just stand out. We want to really recognize them. But, Mike, you got 3, I got 3, and then we'll flip over to the other roster. We'll do 3 and 3 again before we get to our dog of the week or our dog of the day at the end of the show. Who's the first guy that you want to shout out from the American side?
Well, first, I would like to shout out that I am a fan of the fact that there's no real good quarterbacks here. Last year, we had everyone there. We had the whole draft class of quarterbacks here, basically, competing. And it kind of took away from other guys. This year, we can just throw that position out the window. None of these guys are going before the 4th round. I'll just say it right now.
Hey, Duggan looked good.
Okay, you look fine. None of these guys going before the 4th round. So we can focus on other positions. And the one position that I am focusing on, because there's a group of about 3 guys here that I'm intrigued by. Wide receiver, Tank Dell, Houston wide receiver.
Oh, totally.
This is a setting where, the one-on-ones he's supposed to excel. But my God, he was untouchable at the line of scrimmage. His routes were crisp as can be. He has a level of dynamism that I think every team in the NFL is chasing. I thought of him as probably a mid to late day tour, kind of just based off of tape early on. I'm getting sold on this guy as probably a 2nd rounder at this point, middle of the 2nd round.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, in this class, I could certainly see it. He's my number 1 guy as well. I have to go with Tank Dell too. Now, what did he officially came in at, what was it, 5'8", 163? I mean, he is small. He is small. And so when you talk about this class, even for the people that like Tank Dell a ton, you can't be talking about a 1st rounder. He is just too small for that. Even if you don't love this wide receiver class. And I think that Tank Dell brings something to this wide receiver class that a lot of other receivers just don't, right? I mean, you mentioned it. The way this guy is able to get out of his break, the way that he is able to flip his hips, the way that he is able to stop on a dime is so impressive. It's head and shoulders above everybody that's here in Mobile, I think. Although there are some good guys here that we will get to later in the show. But I think it also is that athleticism is going to stand out in the draft class overall, because we've talked about it here. It is a draft class that is starving for athletes, really stand out athletes at the wide receiver position. And Tank Dell absolutely stood out. I mean, they had him field of punts, obviously. They just want to get his dynamic ability on the field as much as possible. I didn't think that he caught as many passes as maybe you would think that he would in a day 1, but it's just like he was clearly open, man. He was creating separation everywhere. He was definitely my number 1 guy as well.
The single most underrated, under-talked about skill for a wide receiver. Everyone loves speed, and Dell has speed, don't get me wrong. But the ability to stop is as important as the ability to start. Yeah, to run efficient routes at the NFL level, you have to be able to stop on dimes. It just flat out is a necessary skill at the wide receiver position. Tank Dell, high end speed, and stops on a dime. That's a guy I want in my offense. I don't care what offense you're running. He fits.
That's a really great point. Being able to be precise in your route, like that goes into it. That stop. Everybody likes to talk about the start ability, the stop ability. You're right. It is just as important when you're trying to create that separation. Who's your number 2 guy from the American squad?
My number 2 guy, I'm going to flip to the other side of the coins. Cornerback TYRIQUE Stevenson from Miami.
Okay.
High on him coming in. He would have been a top 10 corner if Eli Ricks didn't declare on the PFF board. But after this, I think he's going to be a top 10 corner. I saw him as a midday 2 guy on tape. His press coverage ability, though, comes in at 6 foot, 205 pounds, bigger corner, and at the line of scrimmage, he just shut guys down immediately. And then even when he was a little off coverage, didn't have that physicality at the line, you saw an anticipation ability that a lot of other guys didn't show down here. So TYRIQUE Stevenson, I thought, had himself a great day.
I only caught a couple of reps, Stevenson, but he did look really good. And I noticed a lot just from having conversations with other people after the day. It's like who stood out. Stevenson continued to be a name that came up. So I like that as well. Somebody else I'll shout out, Julius Brents, the corner from Kansas State. I mean, he is 6'3", 200 pounds, and he was good today. He was such a stand. Now, I thought that we were going to watch him, and I was like, man, he's tall, he's a little high-waisted. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to turn and run with these other guys. I was wondering if he was going to be a little bit grabby, because we've seen that at the Senior Bowl plenty of times too, right? These bigger corners who live off of their length, sometimes they just really want to stand out at these events. They don't want to get beat with speed, and you just see him grabbing everywhere. So many penalties. He wasn't. Yeah. He was super patient in press coverage. He waited to really utilize that length until it was appropriate for him and gave him the most advantage. So I didn't have him on my list. He's not my number 2 guy, but I wanted to shout him out because I think that he absolutely deserves it. The second guy that I want to point out, and this isn't necessarily praise, but I'm pointing this out for a couple of different reasons. Florida offensive guard O'Cyrus Torrence, I think, is projected as a potential first-round pick in this draft. A lot of people think that he could be the first interior offensive lineman on the board. I think that there is still a shot at that, 100%. But I was a little underwhelmed by how he performed early here. I felt like he was not displaying his power nearly as much as I had seen him do on tape. Now, the Senior Bowl is a wonderful exercise to see guys out of their program's element. You plop them into an offense that they're unfamiliar with guys that they're not as have as much chemistry with on the left and the right side of them. So sometimes these kinds of things can happen. I will say though, Torrance looks great. Oh, yeah. I thought, I saw pictures of him, videos of him, kind of like early throughout the season, where I just felt like he was carrying unnecessary weight. Like he didn't look as good as he could have. Here at the Senior Bowl, I think he's cut some weight and he looks a lot more in control of his body. I just think he looks a lot more powerful. The weight's distributed much more in the way that you would want to see it. He's still big in the lower body. He's got the big arms in the upper body. So I just want to say, it was a little bit of an underwhelming day for him to start, but he looks great. I hope he comes out tomorrow and absolutely dominates, because I think he can be able to do that with playing at the weight that he's at.
Yeah, 6'5", 337, 11 and a quarter inch hands, 84-inch wingspan, 7-foot wingspan. That dude is a unit. And just, you said he's maybe not the most, like, he doesn't have the mentality of a crushing, bruising guard, but just like the physicality that he does possess is NFL caliber, high-end NFL caliber.
Well, he did sometimes at Florida. Yeah. He did throughout his tape at Florida. We saw him as an eraser. He had one of the best run blocking grades that we had over at PFF, but I just didn't see it today.
Yeah.
I want to see it tomorrow. Let's see it tomorrow, Osiris. That's what I want. All right.
I will say, I think he can go as high as like 11 to the Titans.
Whoa.
He's got, like, in this class, I do think people want some sure things, and I think he could be that.
Okay. Who's your last guy from the American?
My last standout from the American squad was Andre Yosevich. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. The Princeton wide receiver.
Okay.
I said not a great wide receiver class down here, but he has unique size-speed combination. 6'2", 212. Reportedly going to run the 4.3. He's looked fast here out on tape. I love the ball skills. He made an over-the-shoulder grab. It wasn't in the one-on-ones. It was just an open route time. Over-the-shoulder grab, though, that was high-level ball tracking. Made it look easy. I think those ball skills are going to be huge for a guy that size. You always love that from a speedier wide receiver. And then just looking like he belonged compared to the tape that he put on at Princeton, where corners he's going up against, they're not NFL caliber. He could just run a straight line and get past those guys. Had to do a little bit more here. I like what I saw from him early on.
I think that when you come to Mobile, any of these all-star games, being able to stand out right away means a ton, because it just shows how natural your abilities are and how confident in yourself you are. So I love that shout out there. Last guy that I had from this group, I'll stay along the offensive line. Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright, their right tackle. I'm such a fan of his. I feel like he is getting slept on a little bit in this class. Yeah. And there were so many times I felt like throughout the one-on-one period and throughout the scrimmages as well, where he was just dominating guys. The thing that I like the most about him is his mentality. There was a certain rep. I can't remember which edge rusher he was going up against, but they were coming at him. And normally when you have these one-on-one pass rush drills, the offensive linemen, they're kind of getting to their sets, they're getting to their spot, they're getting their hands up, and they're bracing for whatever the defender might do to them. Darnell Wright, he was taking the fight to them, right? The guy was coming right at him, and he extended the arm immediately, knocked them off, was able to get into his chest, and boom, dominated the rep from that point on. That's the kind of mentality that Darnell Wright plays with. He is an absolute bruiser, and he loves to bring the fight to people. Sometimes gets him a little trouble because he gets a little bit over-aggressive, but it's okay. I'd rather have that as a coach and really be able to shape that mentality into a really good right tackle. He definitely stood out to me today. Loved what I saw from him.
Yeah, he has one of the more powerful upper bodies
of
any tackle in this draft class. I think you could see teams look at him as a guard too, but I'd keep him at tackle at the next level, at least to start.
I'd totally do that. Yeah. Let's flip over to the national side. Who's the first guy from the national group that you like today?
First guy that just stood out was the first guy I saw on the football field was Sidney Brown, the Illinois safety, just jacked to the gills. 5'10", 213 pounds.
He is jacked.
With not an ounce of fat on him.
No.
I mean, it's no surprise that he's also one of the most athletic players in this draft class when you have, like 0% body fat. But he's such an easy mover in the one-on-ones and the team drills. Speed is never an issue for him. Guys are just not worried about getting beat deep because of that. So more of a box safety at Illinois this past year, had his best year on tape. Curious to see where he ends up at the next level, because I think he could play box safety. I think he can play slot. I think he can play outside corner if you want him to in a pinch. He's that level of athlete. Really like what I saw from him on tape.
All right. Love it, man. Love it, man. His brother Chase Brown's obviously here as well.
Yes.
So, got the brother connection here. The first guy that I want to shout out from the national team, I'll stay along the trenches. I'll go with DeJuan Jones, the right tackle from Ohio State. Now, literally stands out. 6'8", 360. I mean, some places got him listed at 375. I think they tweeted out this morning that he came in at 375, it's just huge. And he was going up against all different types of edge rushers. Specifically, I think the matchup that everybody wanted to see in that practice was Isaiah Foskey, who had beaten most of the offensive tackles that he had gone up against to that point. Isaiah Foskey went up one-on-one with DeJuan Jones, who had won all of his reps as well. And DeJuan got the better of him, man. Foskey tried to get into his chest, and Foskey, the rep before the DeJuan Jones rep, Foskey put Blake Freeland on his ass. Yeah. He went straight into him, full speed to power, right into his chest, and he bull rushed, bulldozed Blake Freeland completely to the ground. It was one of the most impressive reps that we saw today. He faced DeJuan Jones and kind of tried to do, I don't want to say the exact same thing, but he tried to get in his chest, and he went, oh boy, this dude's a lot bigger. And you just saw that. And so I think DeJuan really stood out with that size, with that length. No one was really able to get the better of him. Footwork, I feel like was a little sloppy at times from him, but he's just so big and powerful. That's the kind of guy that you take a chance on with that athletic ability, or not athletic ability, I should say physical gifts, and you kind of work on the footwork during his first couple of years in the NFL, but was very impressed with him.
Yeah, he was my second standout here. Not high. That's not my type of tackle. I don't like the big plotters. I like athletes at the tackle position. I think projecting the NFL, you have to have that caliber of athleticism. Usually, when you are, though, as egregiously large as someone like DeJuan Jones is, to just put numbers to it, 6'8", 7'5" wingspan, 11 3/4 inch hands. Those are all the biggest numbers in Senior Bowl history. Just to put that out. So he is egregiously large, and truthfully, the balance aspect of him at that size, usually you see guys on the ground a lot. With him, you don't. Like, he's not the most fleet of foot, but if his angles and footwork are precise enough, if he really hones that in, I still think he can be a plus pass protector at the NFL level, because you can't go through this guy.
Right.
Straight up cannot.
Yeah.
He is too big, too strong, too long, and good enough and flexible enough, unlike someone last year, and Daniel Faalele, who just couldn't sink into and he was just on his ass a lot. I think DeJuan Jones can, and I think he can play tackle at the NFL level, and I think he's going to be a top 50 pick because of it.
All right, there we go. My second guy that I want to shout out, look, I'm putting my hand up on this one, okay? I did not watch Michael Wilson film before this week. I didn't. Michael Wilson, he's the wide receiver from Stanford. It took all of 2 reps that I saw from him to be like, all right, ball player. Yep, this kid's good. The release that he had against his teammate, Kai Blue Kelly, which, all right, so maybe he knows Kelly's weaknesses a little bit, so maybe he got him. But, he just absolutely cooked him on the line of scrimmage. And then there was another rep immediately after that where he was running a comeback. And he was able to sell it so well, hit the cornerback's blind spot, get him totally turned around, and then, boom, flip his hips the opposite way, totally open towards the sideline to get that pass. And there wasn't even a contested catch for it because he had already turned the corner around. It just felt like Wilson was such a great route runner in an event that has an opportunity to really shine a light on those players who are running savants. He was one of them. And I thought that outside of maybe if you want to call Tank Dell because of what he was able to do from an athletic standpoint with route running, this guy was an artist, I feel like, in how he set corners up. So I am very excited to watch him throughout the rest of the week. But Michael Wilson from Stanford, everybody, if you haven't watched him, go check him out.
100% one of the standouts here, and I truthfully wasn't on my radar either because he's played 14 games the last 3 years. He has not been able to stay healthy, see the football field, but he's 6'2", 209, unique in that we were talking about these guys who are 163 pounds, 175 pounds, not good size.
Right.
Michael Wilson's NFL-ready size and NFL caliber route running ability, that's going to stand out here. Those are the guys that win at the NFL level. Like that despite injury history, obviously is going to be huge, and that probably not going to go highly because of that. You've got to be available still, but yeah, he already looks like a top 5 wide receiver.
So who's your last guy?
My last guy from the American squad is none other than KARL Brooks, the highest graded defensive lineman in college football this past season.
He was awesome.
Bowling Green, played defensive end, stand-up outside linebacker even at times. Weighs 300 pounds. He's 300 pounds. He's going to play in the interior of the NFL. He's not an outside linebacker. And they had him playing the interior here, and he was still clowning interior offensive lineman. He just has such good hands, like such active hands that are uncoachable to the degree that he has it. Powerfully built, lower half, upper half. Not the best length, only 32.25-inch arms, but there are a number of guys doing it at the NFL level with that short arms, whether it's Javon Hargrave, Ed Oliver, Kenny Clark, that I think he can be the next in that lineage of just unique power players on the interior. I think Karl Brooks, he was one of the biggest standouts today.
No, I agree with you completely. He was somebody who definitely made some money, as the saying goes, today on day one of the Senior Bowl. Last guy I'll shout out, North Dakota State offensive lineman. I'm gonna say offensive lineman now, Cody Mock, because he played tackle for the Bison after converting from tight end, I should say. It ended up going to the program as a freshman as a tight end. Didn't he walk on? I think he walked on.
Walked on tight end.
Threw on 60, 70 pounds. They end up making this guy an offensive tackle, so he played offensive tackle for him. He was actually a really great pass blocker this past season, graded out very well in pass blocking. Here at the Senior Bowl, they got to play guard. Look, I understand, like, okay, maybe it doesn't have the length to play tackle nearly as much, but this guy was a former tight end. He's put on so much weight, and they threw him inside. Now, he's about 300, 305. I think they officially listed him at 305. I feel like he's closer to 300, but when you're talking about an interior player, 300 is light. There were times when that initial strength, that initial contact with defensive tackles knocked him back. But, Mike, I was super impressed with how he was able to rework his hands, how he was able to anchor, just the technique that he had. This, to me, feels like an offensive lineman that you take somewhere on day 2, you give him some time, throw some extra weight on him, and all of a sudden, in maybe year 2, year 3, whatever it is, you got a damn good interior offensive lineman. Because this feels like a dude who just loves trench play. And I gravitate towards those players. And Cody Mock, so I wanted to shout him out. Unique player here at this event because he's playing guard at a lower weight. But I think in the NFL, going to get a little bigger, going to get a little stronger, and he's going to be a damn good interior offensive
lineman. Just got to understand when you're drafting a guy like that, it's like year 2, year 3.
Right.
You know, like the draft isn't always a year 1 proposition. Truthfully, it should never be a year 1 proposition with how many guys actually hit the ground running. So with him, you just got to understand that I'm not plugging him in the starting lineup right away, but I want to develop that guy.